Hello YouTube! Welcome, and today I want to bring you 5 meta tier 1 decks that you're going to be seeing on the ladder in Master Duel. Now, these decks I did not feature in my previous video, the best decks in Master Duel, but these are still very competitive. There's a lot of great decks in this format, and it's a very narrow margin between the best decks. I encourage you to find a playstyle you like and pick a deck and start learning it. So without further ado, here are 5 tier 1 meta decks for Master Duel. Alright, so let's get into the lists, but before we begin, I did want to mention that all the deck lists for these lists are going to be in the description, and if you do like this kind of content, would really appreciate if you subscribe to the channel. These are lists that I developed with my testing group of players that I trust, and also in coordination with research of lists that did really well in the OCG during similar formats to what we have in Master Duel now, in addition to my own experience. The first list I want to talk about is Sky Strikers. Sky Striker is an extremely powerful deck, and it's been a top tier deck in both the TCG and OCG for a long time. Sky Striker Ray, your main monster, has the ability to quick play, tag out, and turn into one of these link monsters in your extra deck. Kind of like how Zodiacs have a 1-card XYZ monster, Sky Strikers have a 1-card link monster. Due to Ray's effect, allowing her to quick play, tag out, this deck is really good against Max C, which we're seeing 3 of in a lot of players' decks. This is extremely durable strategy. Whenever your opponent removes one of your Sky Striker Ace monsters, Ray can summon herself from your graveyard and turn into a different color. It's really hard to get rid of Ray once she's in rotation. This deck can also play a lot of powerful spells, and it's very good going first or second. You also have plenty of room for hand traps in this deck. It's extremely versatile, and you'll see a lot of different Sky Striker lists seeing success on ladder. The list that I've built focuses on strengths while going second. The Sky Striker cards are extremely good when you opt to go second. They all get an additional effect, such as Afterburner destroying your opponent's cards, Jamming Wave also destroying your opponent's cards. You can attack with Hayate, which can attack directly for 1500 damage, and then send any Sky Striker card from your deck to your graveyard, such as Sky Striker Mobilize Engage. Then you can grab that card back from your graveyard with Sky Striker Ace Kagari and start your loops. Engage is one of the best cards in the game. It lets you add any Sky Striker card from your deck, and then if you have 3 or more spells in your graveyard, you can draw 1 card. This is a theme that is pretty typical with the Sky Striker cards. They like to amass spells in the graveyard, and every spell makes your Kagari 100 attack stronger and makes your Shizuku reduce your opponent's attack by 100. For that reason, we chose to play 3 Upstart Goblin, a card that's limited in the TCG. It improves your consistency and stacks spells in your graveyard. Also, we chose to play 1 copy of Chicken Game, which is a banned field spell in the TCG, but you can use up to 3 here. You can play more or less copies of this card to your liking, but it makes terraforming much better since this list only plays 1 copy of the Sky Striker field spell, Area 0. Now, I did choose 2 copies of Mind Control, which is a card that's at 3, so you can play more copies if you like. This is a going second card, just like Lightning Storm, so you may find that if you're forced to go first, your turns will be a little bit weaker. If you would prefer to play more going first cards, I would recommend a Floodgate called There Can Be Only One. This card says that each player can only control 1 monster of each type. It doesn't really affect you that much. You can link away your Ray, which is a warrior, into a machine, being one of your Sky Striker aces. You can't switch colors while you're under There Can Be Only One, but it usually hurts your opponent more than it hurts you. And if it ever becomes too much of a problem for you, you can use Sky Striker Multi-Roll to send it away. And Multi-Roll, another limited card in the TCG, at 3 in Master Duel, giving you another reason why this is one of the best decks in this format. The next deck that I have to showcase for you is Lyrilusc Tri-Brigade. This deck is currently the best deck, or tied for the best deck, in the TCG format, and the build that you can play in Master Duel is almost card for card the same as TCG. You have everything here, and if not more, you have up to 3 copies of Fire Formation Tanky, which is limited in the TCG. For this deck, you play a ton of the Lyrilusc birds, which specialize in rank 1 XYZ summoning, and you have a boss monster, Recital Starling, which searches your deck for any level 1 winged beast. Conveniently, a Tri-Brigade monster, Tri-Brigade Nerval, is a level 1 winged beast and turns on the second half of your engine. This deck's really good, and it plays around Nibiru the Primal Being, Nibiru here, which can summon whenever 5 monsters are summoned during a turn, because you'll be able to summon Utopic Draco Future, a monster negate. You can summon this before you commit to your normal summon, which is ideally going to be a Tri-Brigade. If they don't Nibiru you, you'll have a monster negate on the board, and there's not much they can do past that point. This deck, it didn't see much play in the OCG format while this was similar to Master Duel because of Max C. Max C pretty much stops this deck in its tracks. It's a heavy special summon deck. There are some ways that you can mitigate Max C, however. Max C can be stopped by playing cards like Crossout Designator, by Called by the Grave, and you can also use Ash Blossom to negate its effects. If your combo resolves and your opponent doesn't have one of these big power spells, it's almost unbreakable, the boards that this deck can make. Check out some combos on YouTube if you're interested. The third deck I have for you today is my personal favorite deck of all time, the Invoked deck. Now, I choose to play Invoked with Shaddoll cards, giving them powerful boss monsters in El Shaddoll Winda, which says your opponent can only special summon 1 time per turn. Technically, both players can only special summon 1 time per turn, but if you summon this on your opponent's turn, using a card like Shaddoll Schism, after having a full turn of your own, the game can sometimes just end there. She's one of the best boss monsters in the game, cannot be destroyed by opponent's card effects, and is extremely easy to summon using your basic combos. In this deck, we have plenty of room for hand traps, so we do take advantage of it, and we have power spells. Shaddoll Fusion, fusion summoning using materials from deck, Nadir's Servant, giving you an entire play. In itself, it's a +1, and Super Polymerization, which can gobble up your opponent's entire board and give you a monster in return. You also have there can be only one, a floodgate that I mentioned in the Sky Striker portion of this video. One of the best floodgates in the game, and this deck has some of the best synergy with it. It won't affect you almost at all. You also have access to Predaplant Verte Anaconda, which allows you to copy one of your fusion spells directly from the deck, such as Shaddoll Fusion or Super Polymerization, giving you another fusion summon with only any 2 monsters on the field can summon this guy. You also have Invoked Mechaba. This card allows you to discard a card of the same type, monster, spell, or trap, to negate and banish one of your opponent's cards. It's extremely easy to summon. All you need is Alistair the Invoker, since when you use him, he can normal summon, add invocation, link summon into Artemis, the Magistus Moon Maiden, and then you have a light plus Alistair, which are the materials for Mechaba, and it allows you to insulate the rest of your turn from hand traps since you summon a negate first. You can play great extenders like Dogmatica Ecclesia. She can special summon from your hand. Yes, we only have 1 Nadir's Servant in this format, but it doesn't really affect you that much since Ecclesia does very similar lines. In the extra deck, I chose to play a Super Poly target in Mud Dragon of the Swamp. This only takes any 2 monsters of the same attribute but different types. Some people play Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, which takes 2 darks. However, when I've played this deck, I found that the only boards you can't Super Poly using either Alistair the Invoker or Shaddoll Dragon are non-lighter dark attributes. Because if they have a board with strong lighter dark monsters, you just normal or set one of your Shaddolls or Alistairs, and then you can easily make a Shaddoll monster or an Invoked monster. But let's say you're playing against the Lyrilusc deck and they make their crazy board. Well, most of their monsters are wind, and you'll be able to get rid of at least a few of the problems using 1 Super Poly. It's a very powerful board breaker. This deck also has easy access to Shaddoll Aerial. This card is insane. When it's sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can target up to 3 cards in either player's graveyard and banish them. Against some decks, this is an instant win when all of their crucial pieces are in graveyard and you just remove them from the game. Let's say you're playing against Sky Strikers. You can remove their Sky Striker Ace Ray and 2 of their favorite spells. They're going to be so behind after you resolve this card that you can easily clean up the rest of the duel. This deck is also super consistent with tons of 1-card starters, and you're going to be playing almost every single game. It's going to be a very consistent deck that'll do you really well on ladder, and I expect you'll see a lot of this in high-rated dueling. The next deck I'm featuring is Adamancipators. This deck is highly hyped up right now because Block Dragon is at 3 in the Master Duel format. Block Dragon is banned in the TCG, and the format in which it was at 3 was not heavily explored. It was the beginning of 2020. We had just gone into COVID lockdowns. Events were canceled. And so upon the Adamancipators set release, we didn't really have adequate tournaments to test this out. However, you can do some crazy combos with Block Dragon. This card, when it's sent to the graveyard, it can add up to 3 of your cards from your deck. It can summon itself by banishing 3 Earth monsters. It's the perfect card for this strategy. We also have tools available to us like Jet Synchron and Mecha Phantom Beast O-Lion going into Kriston Halqifibrax plays and ending up with Mecha Phantom Beast Auroradon, which gives you huge synchro potential. You'll be able to summon boss monsters like Borreload Savage Dragon and use cards like Union Carrier to equip it with the Dragon Buster of Destruction sword. So this card will make it so your opponent cannot summon from their extra deck. The rock monsters are actually really fun and cool because the tuners, Researcher, Analyzer, and Seeker, are able to reveal the top 5 cards of your deck, and then any non-tuner level 4 or lower rocks that you reveal, you can special summon one of them. So you have targets like Doki Doki, Koikimaru Guardian, which is probably the best target. When this card's on the field, it can tribute itself to negate a monster effect. So these effects really force out your opponent's hand traps, because if you activate it and reveal a Guardian, it just summons it, and after that, their hand traps are pretty much nullified unless you get hit by an infinite impermanence. You also have Koikimaru Supplier, which adds more cards. It's a very lean deck, and you can play 3 Max Cs, which is an Earth. You can use extra Max Cs as fodder for your Block Dragon. We do play cards like Madolche Petincessor and Gigantes. These cards are generic level 4 special summons that you'll use to go into cards like Gallant Granite, which will let you search your deck for any rock that you don't have. You're usually going to search out either Adamancipator Researcher or Block Dragon, whichever one you need to complete your combos. As far as interruptions, we can play 3 copies of Nibiru the Primal Being. This card's nice because even if you end up playing against a deck that doesn't special summon 5 times, you can just discard it for Doki Doki's effect. It's a rock. And so it has other synergies. You can banish it with Block Dragon. And then 2 copies of Called by the Grave so you don't get hit by Max C yourself. And then 2 copies of Forbidden Droplets, 2 copies of Infinite Impermanence to kind of hedge against this deck's weakness going second. Some of your boss monsters like Dragite have crazy effects going second as well. This is a very fun deck. It's pretty cool revealing the top 5 cards of your deck, and like you don't know what you're going to hit, so every combo is different. If you like synchro decks, this might be the deck for you. The 5th and final deck that I want to showcase in this video is Dragon Link, a deck that's really close to my heart. I've taken this deck to multiple YCS and regional events, and this deck changes through every single format. It just will not die due to the extreme power of Rocket Tracer having a Link 1 in Striker Dragon, a card that's limited in the TCG, by the way. We have 3 copies of Striker Dragon, giving you a long grind game where you can keep recycling cards like Rocket Recharger, which lets you, when you pop Striker Dragon, add back Recharger, summon any dark monster from your graveyard, even some of your big boss dragons that you've summoned in previous turns. This deck has a ton of 1-card starters. All of your normal summons are really good, and you have a wide variety of extenders. This is one of the less consistent combo decks, but it can have a lot more of mid-range options. So let's say your opponent does Max C you through your Ash Blossoms, and you have to deal with Max C. Well, the build that I chose plays a Dragon Maid engine, which is just 2 Dragon Maid Tidying and 1 Chamber Dragon Maid. What you can do is take any 2 dragons that you're able to summon and convert them into a Hieratic Seal of the Heavenly Spheres. Let's say you drew a Dragon Maid Tidying or maybe a hand trap to back it up. The spheres will give them a card draw off of the Max C, but then you can pass, and they have to deal with a non-targeted bounce effect in the seals, which also special summons a monster from your deck. You're either going to summon 1 copy of Dragon Maid, which adds a copy of Tidying, or you can summon the Black Metal Dragon, which adds a copy of Darkness Metal Dragon, which is at 2 in this list. So you have an additional tool in this deck that the TCG doesn't have. Also, the Collapse Serpent and the Wyvern Buster are limited in the TCG. For my list, I opted to play 2 copies of each instead of 3 because these cards cannot be normal summoned, so there are some chances that it does brick your hand. You do have one of the best spells in the game, Chaos Space. Chaos Space lets you discard a light or a dark to add the other color. And then it has a graveyard effect to recycle one of your non-normal summonable dragons to draw a card. So when you do your full combo, if it goes right, just a 1-card combo, you can, in the middle of your combo, have like 7 cards in your hand. And if you get Max Seed, you can consolidate your resources really well and still have meaningful interruptions. I chose to play Twin Twister instead of like Harpy's Feather Duster as the back row removal for this deck, because a lot of the dragons, they do have graveyard effects, but more importantly, sometimes you need to put a light light or dark in your graveyard to start your combo with a Wyvern Buster, maybe the last piece you need for Chaos Dragon Levineer, maybe you even discard a Chaos Space to get a card draw. The deck is extremely versatile, and every combo is different, since as part of your combo you're going to summon Chaos Ruler, the Chaotic Magical Dragon. This card, when it's summoned, you excavate the top 5 cards of your deck and add an excavated light or dark monster for it from your pile to your hand. And then it can special summon itself from the graveyard by banishing a light and a dark. If you like Chaos decks, this is definitely the deck for you. It's super fun, and you get to summon a bunch of cool dragons. It's also extremely powerful, and you have access to broken combos like the Union Carrier equipping the Buster Dragon, as we did in the Adamancipators. I am really passionate about this deck, and if you're interested in dragon decks, I encourage you to give it a try. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, the deck lists will be in the description, and I'm going to do my best to provide a combo video and gameplay tutorials, budget options for all the decks that I showcase on this channel. If there's any other content that you'd like to see, just leave it in the description below. We have a Discord with a ton of members that's super active right now. If you guys want to join the Discord, we have some great discussions going on about these deck lists. I also go live on Twitch. All the links are in the description. Thanks again for watching. Hope you have a great day.